Hey guys, Sean here. A lot of disturbing developments have happened over the last week and the economy is going to get much worse. I hate to be Dr. Doom once again, but we need to analyze how close we are to a recession and how the situation in Europe is leading up to a potential world war. Now, we are in this hellish economy deep in stagflation, and I really want us to understand what that means. A stagflation is when you combine a recession, a period of slow or negative growth, with an environment of high inflation. And right now, both elements are going to get much worse, especially inflation. Now, the Federal Reserve is trying to raise interest rates and pull out money from the economy. And yes, it can solve the demand side of the inflation. You remove dollars and there's less money chasing goods and services. However, that is at the cost of destroying the economy and will crush demand for almost everything. But the Fed can't control the supply side of the equation. NATO slowly pushing Russia towards a direct confrontation, and this means we could see the energy crisis and food shortage just get worse in the months ahead. Now, there are two big things you have to focus on right now: the upcoming recession and how things in Europe are spiraling out of control because it will impact you, your investments, and your daily cost of living. Now, if you're in the stock market and you bought in at the highs, you are probably hurting right now, but I hate to say that the pain is going to continue and you need to hang on tight, guys. You need to grab the railings like you've never grabbed it before, because the problem with stagflation is that it doesn't just cause a simple market correction. We are going to enter a full-blown recession or prolonged bear market if the Fed doesn't step in to save the day. Now, this is the ultimate curse that really robs the middle class of their wealth and tears the class divide even further, right? You have the poor over here, you have the rich over here. Now it's going to become like that. And stagflation takes no prisoners and it won't stop until everything is burned to the ground and we have to build back up from the ashes. Now, we're already feeling it. Just yesterday, I talked to a few friends and the story is the same. Wages are stagnant, the majority of their cash is funneled towards their mortgage and food, and they are literally cutting everything out, right? There's no vacations, no new cars, no fancy gadgets, everything's gone. And in fact, they're starting to sell their junk online. You know, when you start selling your junk online, you're getting pretty desperate and they're raising cash to survive, right? And let's talk about recession first. Now, a lot of pundits in the mainstream are trying to say that it's not the end of the world and there might be a soft landing and that a recession will only come in 2023. But as you'll quickly see, they are just trying to calm you down because remember, this has to be a controlled demolition. They cannot control the facts, but they can put a spin on things and control the narrative. And let's talk about recession. We're already at the doorstep of one. Now, the US economy has officially contracted the first quarter. The GDP has fallen by 1.6%, which is worse than the estimates, and I have a bad feeling we'll be seeing more negative growth in Q2. Remember that the technical definition for recession is 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. We have to understand that the economy isn't just stagnant or experiencing slower growth, it is contracting, guys. Businesses are starting to fail, and people are starting to spend a lot less, and the numbers are not looking good at all. Now, if we take a look at the personal consumer spending, it is showing a trend of slower spending and it's actually starting to contract at the tail end towards May. Remember that this is a lagging indicator and consumer spending didn't go down in 08 recession until we were in full swing. And I'm quite convinced that the only reason the figure isn't crashing yet is because food and fuel are up by 20 to 30%. So any reductions in all those discretionary spending are being shifted over there. But if there's any leading indicator that tells us spending is crashing, it will be the consumer sentiment, which is near all-time lows. We are at 58.4 right now, which is almost as low as the 08 recession levels. Now, people are feeling poor. They don't see things getting better, and this could trigger the start of a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you are feeling broke, you tend to spend less across the board. Businesses don't earn as much, and that will boomerang back to you. Maybe it's a layoff, maybe you don't get that promotion that you deserve, and before you know it, things just get worse and worse. And it's only until demand craters to its absolute lowest that things will start to pick up. But here's the $1 trillion question. When exactly will we enter a recession and how long will it last? Well, the Fed has actually answered that question. According to their predictive models, a recession is more or less confirmed and we have a date on it. Now, the New York Fed has their DSGE model that predicts the probability of a recession coming ahead, and he has confirmed our worst fears, and you need to pay attention to this. This takes into consideration a whole host of factors including the GDP, inflation numbers, real wages, real investments, and the 10-year treasury yield, so it's pretty accurate and the results are disturbing just to say the least. Now, the model tells us there's a 90% probability of a recession by December 2022, and the mean GDP growth will be minus 0.6% by year end. Plus, the prediction model tells us that inflation will likely settle at 3.8% as well, which I personally think is understating things. But if we extrapolate it out, it shows that by end 2023, we will still have a GDP growth of minus 0.5%. So a conservative estimate points to a recession that will last at least 12 months from end of this year to the end of December 2023. But that is the optimistic prediction. That is the good news. And remember who I am. I'm Dr. Doom. And if we look at reality, which is the prediction model done by the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now forecast, things are looking very grim. In fact, we might be in a recession right now and we don't know it yet. Now, this model tells us that the GDP Q2 estimate is minus 1%, and if we combine that with Q1's negative 1.6%, we are officially in a technical recession. We really need to prepare, and if you're watching this, really spread this video to your family and friends and get them to understand that tough times are coming. There's going to be less money in the system, unemployment is going to rise sharply over the next 6 to 18 months, but costs are not coming down, guys. In fact, it's going to go up. And this is where the story turns into a nightmare. I need to warn you that this next part is going to be a horror show for what might come down the road because we are at the doorsteps of World War III. Now, we all want the war to stop. We all want the Ukraine-Russia war to stop. It's a horrific tragedy, but it's not going to end anytime soon. Now, Russia has a huge control of the Donbas region, and it's without a doubt that they want to annex the whole region and possibly push towards the port city of Odessa to gain access to the Black Sea. And the scary thing is that the West has already slapped Russia with multiple sanctions. First they froze their money, then they embargoed their oil, and just recently the G7 banned their gold. But Russia is still functioning. Somehow they are still fighting. And because of this conflict, we have seen horrific spikes in the price of oil and food shortages are popping up globally. But it's about to get worse, folks. NATO formally invited Finland and Sweden to join the alliance, and Russia is having none of it. In fact, Putin has gone on record to issue a warning that if NATO tries to install any military infrastructure or standing armies in these two countries, they will respond in kind. And that means most likely a military buildup on the Russian border near Finland. And this is not good news, guys. In fact, we are on the brink of World War III if this escalates any further into armed conflict on NATO soil. Because NATO Article 5 guarantees a full-scale European war if Russia dares to attack or invade the Finnish border, and it isn't impossible that Putin could really want to expand his war to a new front, especially since he has the advantage of supplying Europe with gas and commodities. Now, if we look at the map here, we can see that Russia's border with NATO is about to expand in a big way, and if we zoom out, it is beginning to look like NATO is fast about to encircle Russia if Georgia in the south joins the alliance. Now, whether you like Russia or not, you need to put yourself in Putin's shoes. Now that Finland and Sweden are about to join NATO, will he attack first before Article 5 is enacted? Or will he sit back and see NATO's border extend further and come within touching distance of Russia? Now, these are some serious questions that need answers, but it could really ignite a global conflict by the time we find out what they are. And this is extremely problematic. Now, the big issue is how far this conflict could extend and what consequences we can expect from Russian commodities that can be weaponized as part of this war. Now, let's assume that NATO membership does follow up with a military buildup in Sweden or Finland. Then we can expect Russia to match that with their own buildup. But that's not all. The problem with modern warfare is now multi-dimensional and it involves more than soldiers shooting at each other. Now the real war is being fought financially and Russia can immediately stop their gas supplies to Europe in retaliation. And for you and me, even if we don't live in Europe, our cost of living is going to go up. Russia is going to stockpile all of their oil and all of their gas, all of their metals and all of their food for themselves. Now the thing is, most of us don't realize how this can evolve into a world war. Remember that the United States is part of NATO and is obligated to help Europe if Russia decides to attack. And then we have China, which can get involved to help Russia as well. During the NATO summit in Madrid, Asian nations including Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand were invited, and this shows a pivot towards possibly building an Asian alliance. But the statements that came out of the summit can be seen as provoking China. New Zealand's Prime Minister said that China has in recent times also become more assertive and more willing to challenge international rules and norms, while the US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken stated that one of the things that China's doing is seeking to undermine the rule-based international order that we adhere to, that we believe in, and that we helped build. So this is setting the stage for an intervention against China, or at least warning them to back down and be less ambitious. But we don't know for sure what is going to happen. But let's war game this out for a moment. If Russia really does go to war with NATO, we can see that the combined forces of NATO, which includes America, will easily mop up the floor with Russia. They have almost 5 times more military personnel as well as aircraft compared to Russia. But once you throw China into the mix, the odds suddenly change. Now, this is a beautiful infographic, and we can see that with China on Russia's side, NATO will be in for a tough fight. While the alliance has more soldiers and conventional units like tanks and navy vessels, China and Russia possesses more nuclear weapons, which is a frightful thing to consider. It's really going to be a coin toss on which side is going to win, and I hope we never have to find out, because no matter which side wins, the whole world could be in ruins, and we really have to prepare for this, right? So what does this mean for us? On one hand, we can expect a recession to hit us within a few months and inflation continue to soar. Now, it doesn't matter how much rates are being hiked or how much money power pulls out from the system, because if the Russia-Ukraine war escalates, commodities will continue to fly up in price. We can prepare for oil prices to spike again and food prices to go up by another 5 or 10% easily. Supply chains will start to break, and there will be more sanctions thrown around, especially if China gets dragged into this mess. Now, the financial markets are going to tumble, guys. I don't think we are in for just another 10% crash. We better adjust that number up by 20 to 30%, because people will be liquidating their assets. There's going to be a general sell-off in everything. Stock prices will fall because people are going to demand higher wages as their cost of living goes up. The cost of materials is also going to skyrocket, and spending is going to come down. And you know what will happen next, right? Businesses, big and small, will start to buckle, and yes, massive layoffs are incoming. There are going to be very few assets that at the end of the year will end with a positive gain. Maybe Lockheed Martin and other war manufacturers will benefit if things escalate. Gold could also get a boost back above $2,000 like what we saw earlier in March this year, but everything else could very well collapse if things go belly up. Now, there's no safety net, guys. You might be thinking maybe oil stocks are a great place to hide. But remember that Biden is considering slapping a windfall tax on oil profits. So if you dive into oil stocks now, you might get punched in the face down the road. And as unpopular as this sounds, I think we should be stacking some more cash during this period, even though inflation is sky high, because everything else could really crater. Sure, you can dollar cost averaging now, but you need to be mentally prepared and also emotionally prepared that things could go much lower. Don't try to be a hero and lump sum invest during this period, because anything and everything could go wrong within a matter of weeks or even days. Now, I believe we are really slipping into a long stagflation that's going to challenge the history books. There are a lot of experts saying that a recession will only come in 2023, and that may be true. Maybe we'll only feel the full effects next year, but a textbook technical recession is coming, and I won't be surprised if it hits us by this September or December. And the big question is, will you survive? Now, things are going to get much worse before it gets better, and we need to be prudent with our spending. If you can save money now, save out as much as you can. You want to prioritize survival first, and if you have enough liquid cash, you can really start snapping up fantastic deals once the economy goes into the toilet. Now, always watch for the signs of a recession. The indicators are starting to flash red, and always do your research no matter what. The mainstream narrative is to calm you down and downplay the severity of everything, because it has to be a controlled demolition. Everyone will be giving 2 thumbs up and a smile before everything quickly turns into panic. So let me know what you think. Will we be entering a recession in a few months? Will the Ukraine conflict escalate all the way to a world war? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, and if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these turbulent times. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.